The starship Starward dropped out of faster-than-light travel with a brief flash of blue light. On the bridge, Captain Olivia Reeves watched as the planet Viridia came into view on the main screen. It was beautiful, blue oceans, green landmasses, and white clouds swirling across its surface. "Looks like home," said Lieutenant Frank Carter from his station. "At least, how Earth used to look before the climate shifts." Captain Reeves nodded. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Dr. Martinez, what do your scans tell us?" The science officer, a thin man with intelligent eyes, studied his display. "Atmosphere is breathable. Nitrogen-oxygen mix, slightly higher oxygen content than Earth. Temperature readings indicate a tropical to temperate climate across most of the planet. And there's abundant plant life. Sir, any signs of intelligent life? Cities? Technology?" Reeves asked. "Nothing obvious," Martins replied. "But there's definitely complex life down there. I'm picking up large biological signatures in the oceans and forests." Reeves stood up and straightened her uniform. This was the moment her crew had trained for. After 5 years traveling through space, they had found a world that might support human life. "Prepare a landing party," she ordered. "We'll set down near that large lake in the northern continent. Martinez, Carter, Powell, Rodriguez, and Wright. You're with me. Woods, you have the ship." Chief Engineer Samantha Woods nodded. "Aye, Captain. We'll keep an eye on you from up here." 6 hours later, the landing shuttle touched down in a clearing near a massive blue lake. The water sparkled under the alien sun, and strange bird-like creatures with 6 wings scattered into the sky at their arrival. Heather Powell, the team's biologist, was the first to step onto the alien soil. She knelt down and touched the purple-tinged grass. "It feels like grass, but look at these cellular structures," she said, examining a blade through her portable microscope. "Completely different from Earth plants. This is amazing." While the humans set up their base camp, they didn't notice the eyes watching them from the dense forest. The Viridians, with their slender blue-gray bodies and large reflective eyes, observed the strange new creatures with a mix of fear and wonder. "They walk like the upright ones from the eastern plains," whispered Kylefax, the elder of the observation group. "But their skin, it's so exposed and fragile-looking." "Their vessel came from the stars," said Tazril, the youngest of the group, "just as the ancient stories said might happen one day." "Silence," hissed Kylefax. "We must watch and learn before we reveal ourselves. Remember the sacred laws." Back at the camp, Lisa Wright, the communications specialist, adjusted her equipment. "Captain, I'm picking up some unusual signal patterns. Very faint, but definitely structured. Could be background radiation, or it could be a sign of intelligence." Reeves finished for her. "Keep monitoring. If there's someone here, we need to know." As the sun began to set, Dr. Martinez approached the captain with concern on his face. "You need to see this," he said, showing her readings on his handheld device. "I've been analyzing the biological signatures in the lake. There's something big in there. I mean, really big." Captain Reeves looked out at the calm surface of the lake. "Dangerous. Hard to say without more data, but based on these readings, it's a predator. Possibly the apex predator of this region." "Interesting," Reeves said. "Tomorrow we'll set up observation posts. If we're going to call this place home, even temporarily, we need to know what we're sharing it with." As darkness fell, the humans lit their camp with portable lights, creating a bright island in the alien night. The Viridians retreated deeper into the forest, but Tazril lingered, fascinated by these fearless creatures who seemed unconcerned about camping so close to Lake Cerulean, home of the sacred stalkers, the divine punishers who had kept the Viridian people in check for countless generations. Tazril shuddered as a distant splash echoed from the lake. The humans had no idea what lurked beneath those deceptively peaceful waters. Morning came with twin suns rising over Lake Cerulean. Lieutenant Frank Carter and Heather Powell walked along the shoreline, collecting samples and mapping the area. The purple-tinged grass gave way to smooth blue stones near the water's edge. "Look at this," Powell called out, kneeling beside what appeared to be a track in the soft mud. It was massive, almost 5 feet across, with strange ridges and what looked like suction cup marks. "That's one big footprint," Carter said, placing his hand next to it for scale. His hand looked tiny in comparison. "What do you think made it?" Powell scanned the track with her device. "Nothing I've ever seen before. Seems like it has both tentacle and claw features. Fascinating." Carter looked nervously at the calm lake. "And you think this thing is still out there?" "Oh, definitely," Powell said with excitement that made Carter uneasy. "These tracks are fresh, maybe from last night." As they continued their exploration, they found more tracks and strange markings on trees, deep gouges that started 10 feet up the trunk and raked downward. Back at camp, Dr. Martinez analyzed the samples they brought back. "The DNA structure is amazing," he told Captain Reeves. "This creature seems to combine features of what we would call cephalopods and reptiles on Earth." "Is it intelligent?" Reeves asked. "Not likely, at least not in the way we define intelligence. It's a predator, highly evolved, but no signs of tool use or complex social behavior." Lisa Wright entered the tent, her face showing excitement. "Captain, those signals I detected yesterday, they're getting stronger, and they're definitely artificial." "So there is intelligent life here," Reeves said thoughtfully. "Set up the universal translator. If someone's trying to communicate, we need to be ready." Meanwhile, hidden among the trees, more Viridians had gathered to watch the humans. Elder Kilofax held up a communication device, a simple stone that glowed with inner light when activated. "They are setting up machines around the lake," Kilofax reported to the Viridian High Council. "They seem to be studying the stalkers." "This is sacrilege," came the reply. "No one studies the divine punishers. It is forbidden." "These star travelers do not know our ways," Tazril dared to speak up. "Perhaps we should warn them." Kilofax silenced the young Viridian with a stern look. "The council will decide when and if we make contact." At midday, the humans finished setting up camera drones and sensor equipment around the lake. Security Officer Tyler Rodriguez tested the motion detectors. "If anything bigger than a bread box moves near here, we'll know about it." As the afternoon passed, the lake remained peaceful. "Too peaceful," Martinez noted. "There's a complete absence of small aquatic life forms near the shoreline," he told Powell. "In Earth lakes, you'd expect to see fish or their equivalent. Here, nothing." "Classic sign of a top predator," Powell agreed. "Everything else stays away." As dusk approached, Carter noticed ripples in the center of the lake. "Something's moving out there," he called out. The humans gathered at the shore, cameras and sensors ready. The water churned, and then a massive shape breached the surface. It was only visible for seconds, but they all saw the glistening blue-black skin, the ridged back, and what appeared to be multiple tentacles or arms surrounding a beak-like mouth. "The cerulean stalker," Powell whispered in awe. "It must be 30 feet long at least." From their hiding place, the Viridians watched the humans with growing horror. Not only did these strangers not flee at the sight of the sacred beast, but they moved closer, pointing their devices at it. "They do not run," Kilofax said in disbelief. "Do they not fear the divine punisher?" Tazril watched as Captain Reeves directed her team to launch a small drone that followed the creature as it submerged again. "I think," Tazril said slowly, "they see it not as a god, but as an animal to be studied." Such a thought was so shocking that the other Viridians could only stare at the young rebel in stunned silence. The third day on Viridia began with excitement at the human camp. Lisa Wright's communication equipment had been picking up increasingly strong signals throughout the night. "Captain," she called to Reeves, who was drinking her morning coffee substitute, "I've isolated the signal pattern. It's definitely artificial, and seems to be coming from the forest to our west." Captain Reeves set down her cup. "Can you translate any of it?" "The computer is working on it," Wright replied. "It's like nothing we've encountered before, but there are clear patterns. Whoever is sending these signals is intelligent. Dr. Martinez joined them, looking over Wright's shoulder at the data. Fascinating. If there's an intelligent species here, why haven't they built any visible structures? No cities, no technology that our scans could detect from orbit. Maybe they live underground, suggested Powell. Or perhaps their technology is just different from what we're looking for. As they discussed possibilities, the universal translator beeped. It had found enough patterns to begin rough translations. They're talking about us, Wright said, her eyes widening as she read the translations. And about the lake creature. They call it the Divine Punisher. Reeves stood up straight. Someone is watching us. Rodriguez, security protocols. Everyone else, continue your work but stay alert. Unknown to the humans, a debate raged among the Viridians. The High Council had finally decided that contact was necessary. These strangers needed to be warned about the sacred laws before they angered the Divine Punishers. I will go, Elder Califax said. Tazril will accompany me as witness. The rest of you stay hidden. Tazril could barely contain excitement. To meet beings from beyond the sky was beyond anything the young Viridian had ever dreamed possible. Back at the human camp, Security Officer Rodriguez spotted movement at the forest edge. Captain. Two figures approaching from the tree line. Everyone turned to see two slender, blue-gray beings walking slowly toward them. They stood upright on two legs, but their limbs were longer and more delicate than human proportions. Their large, reflective eyes dominated faces that tapered to small mouths. They wore simple garments made from plant fibers, decorated with symbols painted in bright colors. First contact, breathed Captain Reeves. Everyone remember your training. Right, keep the translator running. No sudden movements. The captain stepped forward, hands open at her sides in what she hoped was a universal gesture of peace. We come in friendship, she said clearly. The two Viridians stopped several yards away. The elder one raised a glowing stone. A series of musical tones emerged from it. Wright's translator processed the sounds, then produced an approximate translation. We are the Viridians. This is our world. You camp at Sacred Lake. Dangerous place. Home of divine punishers. Reeves glanced at the lake, then back at the aliens. We mean no harm. We are explorers from Earth, studying new worlds. The translator converted her words, and the Viridians listened. The elder spoke again, the translator working to keep up. You study sacred beasts. This is forbidden. Divine punishers not for study. They judge us. Keep balance. Must be respected, feared, not watched with your devices. Dr. Martinez stepped forward cautiously. I believe they're talking about the lake predator. It seems to have religious significance to them. The younger Viridian, Tazril, studied the humans with obvious curiosity, while Elder Califax continued. You must move camp. Lake unsafe. Divine punishers protect our world from those who do not follow sacred laws. Captain Reeves smiled reassuringly. We understand your concern. Where we come from, we also study creatures we consider dangerous. It helps us understand them and stay safe. When this was translated, Califax seemed confused. The concept of studying something feared rather than avoiding it was clearly foreign. The younger Viridian suddenly spoke directly to the humans, much to the elder's visible dismay. You not fear divine punishers. How is this possible? Captain Reeves invited the Viridians to sit with them near the camp. Elder Califax was reluctant but agreed, keeping a wary eye on the lake. Tazril, by contrast, couldn't stop staring at the human equipment with obvious fascination. We've been studying the creature in your lake, Dr. Martinez explained through the translator. We believe it's similar to predators on our world, though much larger. Not similar, Califax insisted. Divine punishers are unique. They enforce sacred laws. Those who break laws become food for divine ones. Security Officer Tyler Rodriguez had been listening quietly. Now he spoke up. Captain, If these creatures are as dangerous as both our scans and the locals suggest, we should know exactly what we're dealing with. I propose we capture a smaller one for proper study." The translation of this suggestion caused immediate distress. Kyle stood up, the blue color of his skin turning pale. "Capture. This is forbidden. No Viridian has ever touched Divine Punisher and lived." Captain Reeves raised her hands in a calming gesture. "We have technology that can safely contain it. We only want to learn." As they debated, Heather Powell returned from the lakeshore, excitement in her eyes. "Captain, we've spotted what appears to be a juvenile specimen near the eastern cove. It's only about 10 feet long, much smaller than the adult we saw yesterday." Rodriguez nodded. "Perfect. We have the stun nets and containment field generators. With your permission, Captain, we could have it secured by nightfall." Despite the Viridian's growing distress, Captain Reeves gave the order. "Proceed, but with extreme caution." "Right. Explain to our new friends that this is routine for us." No explanation could prepare the Viridians for what they witnessed over the next few hours. The humans moved with purpose, setting up equipment around the eastern cove where the juvenile cerulean stalker had been spotted. They worked fearlessly, even as the water occasionally rippled with movement. "They will all die," Kylefax whispered to Tazril. "We should leave before the divine punishment begins." But Tazril couldn't tear away from the scene. "I want to see," the young Viridian insisted. Rodriguez directed the operation with military precision. "Sensors show it's approaching the bait. Get ready to activate the nets on my mark." The water in the cove churned as something large moved beneath the surface. Then Rodriguez gave the command. "Now." With a whir of machinery, electrified nets shot out over the water, sinking quickly. There was a tremendous thrashing as they found their target. The water foamed and splashed as the creature fought against the restraints. "Containment field," Rodriguez shouted over the noise. Dr. Martinez activated a device that created a shimmering energy barrier around the captured creature. Slowly, using mechanical winches, they drew their prize toward shore. The Viridians watched in absolute horror as the juvenile cerulean stalker was pulled onto land. It was smaller than the adult they had glimpsed, but still massive. Its blue-black skin glistened with water and bioluminescent patterns pulsed along its sides. 10 tentacles, each ending in bone-like claws, thrashed against the nets. A beaked mouth in the center snapped furiously, revealing rows of serrated teeth. "Magnificent," breathed Powell, approaching the secured creature with a scanner. Dr. Martinez took samples of its skin, blood, and the liquid it secreted when agitated. The creature hissed and fought, but the humans worked around it with practiced efficiency. From their position at the edge of camp, Kylefax had fallen to his knees in prayer. Other Viridians had gathered at the forest edge, drawn by news of the sacrilege. They watched, paralyzed by a mixture of terror and awe. "They touched the Divine One," one Viridian whispered. "Yet they do not die." Tazril stood silent, mind racing with implications. If these humans could handle the Divine Punisher so easily, what did that mean for everything the Viridians had been taught? Night fell on the human camp. The captured cerulean stalker remained secured in the containment field, occasionally thrashing against its invisible barriers. Chief Engineer Samantha Woods had come down from the ship to see the creature herself. She now stood with Dr. Martins near their mobile lab, examining test results. "These readings are incredible," Woods said, looking at the data. "The protein structures in its muscle tissue are remarkably compatible with human digestion." Martinez nodded excitedly. "And look at these nutrient profiles. It contains compounds that are difficult to synthesize on long space journeys. If we could find a sustainable food source like this on habitable planets." Captain Reeves joined them, reviewing the findings. She made a decision that would change everything. "The specimen appears to be wounded from its struggle. Medical says it likely won't survive more than a day in captivity." "What do you suggest, Captain?" asked Martinez. "Let's not waste the opportunity. Woods, you mentioned the meat is compatible with human digestion. Woods nodded. Absolutely safe, according to all tests. Even contains beneficial nutrients. Then let's prepare a portion of it for consumption, Reeves decided. If we're considering this planet for a colony, we need to test local food sources. Rodriguez, humanely end the creature's suffering and prepare it for cooking. The Viridians, who had been keeping a nervous distance, didn't understand every word through the translator. But they grasped enough. The humans were going to kill the Divine Punisher. Even worse, they planned to eat it. We must stop them, Halifax whispered urgently. But none of the Viridians moved. Generations of fear kept them frozen in place. How could they challenge beings who handled Divine Punishers so casually? Rodriguez approached the contained creature with a device the size of his hand. One touch to the creature's head, and it went still, its bioluminescent patterns fading slowly to darkness. The humans worked efficiently. They cut away portions of meat from the tentacles, careful to preserve the rest for scientific samples. Frank Carter, who had camping experience, set up a cooking fire. The smell of roasting meat soon filled the air. A feast to celebrate our first days on Viridia, announced Captain Reeves, raising a cup in toast. And to our new friends, the Viridians, who we hope will join us in friendship. The Viridians watched from a distance, too horrified to approach. The humans were cooking the flesh of their most feared deity, and they were inviting the Viridians to join them in this ultimate sacrilege. They are consuming divine flesh, one Viridian elder whispered. The punishment will be terrible. But Yum Tazril wasn't certain anymore. The humans cut into the cooked meat, eating pieces with obvious enjoyment. Hither Powell declared it tasted like a mix of lobster and steak. They laughed, talked, and continued their meal as if eating a godlike creature was normal. It's just meat to them, Tazril said quietly. Just another animal. Halifax looked shocked at these words. It is blasphemy to say such things. But look at them, Tazril insisted. They eat the Divine Punisher, and nothing happens. No lightning strikes them. The ground doesn't swallow them. What if the stalkers are just animals, not gods? Back at the human camp, Captain Reeves noticed the gathering of Viridians at the forest edge. She asked Wright to extend an invitation again through the translator. Offer them some of the cooked meat, she suggested. It might help build cultural bonds. When the translated invitation reached the Viridians, it caused an uproar. Most retreated further into the forest, certain that doom was coming. But Tazril, after a moment of hesitation, took a single step forward. "What are you doing?" demanded Halifax, grabbing Tazril's arm. "I want to understand them," Tazril replied, pulling away. "If they can eat the Divine Punisher and live, everything we believe might be wrong." Dawn broke over Lake Cerulean. The human camp buzzed with activity while the Viridians were nowhere to be seen. They had retreated to their hidden village deep in the forest, where panic and confusion spread. Inside the largest tree dwelling, the Viridian High Council gathered. Elder Halifax recounted everything they had witnessed at the human camp. They consumed the flesh of a Divine Punisher, and yet they live, he reported, his voice trembling. It has been a full night cycle. There was no punishment. The oldest council member, Servax, tapped his gnarled walking stick against the floor. Perhaps the punishment is delayed. The ancient texts speak of divine wrath that takes time to manifest. But others weren't convinced. What if the strangers are more powerful than the Divine Punishers? Asked one council member. What does this mean for our beliefs? Meanwhile, Tazril had slipped away from the village. The young Viridian moved cautiously through the forest toward the human camp, driven by burning curiosity. At the camp, pilot Jake Sullivan was monitoring the lake with sensor equipment. He motioned for Captain Reeves to join him. "Something strange is happening, Captain," he said, pointing to the screen. "Look at the movement patterns of the large stalkers in the deep parts of the lake." The display showed several large shapes moving in the water, but they were all keeping to the furthest side from the human camp. "They're avoiding us," Reeves observed. "After we captured one of their young, Dr. Martinez joined them, looking at the readings. It's more than that. Look at these brainwave patterns we recorded from the specimen before it died. This species is intelligent, perhaps not at our level, but they can communicate with each other. I believe they're warning each other about us. Rodriguez smiled grimly. They recognize a superior predator when they see one. As they discussed this development, Heather Powell spotted movement at the forest edge. "We have a visitor," she called out. "One of the Viridians." Tazriel stepped into the clearing alone. The young alien approached cautiously, without the glowing communication stone the Elder had used. Wright quickly activated her portable translator. "You killed Divine Punisher. You ate divine flesh. No punishment came," Tazriel said simply. "How is this possible?" Captain Reeves invited the young Viridian to sit. "On our world, we have many dangerous creatures," she explained. "We learn to understand them, to hunt them when necessary, and yes, sometimes to eat them. But they are not gods. They are just animals, like us, but different." When this was translated, Tazriel seemed to struggle with the concept. "But divine punishers have controlled Viridian life for thousands of years. We cannot build near lakes or oceans. We cannot travel far. Divine punishers kill any who try." Dr. Martinez nodded with sudden understanding. "The predators have limited their development. They've been trapped by fear, unable to expand their civilization because of these creatures. Our people hide in forest, safe from divine punishers," Tazriel continued. "Sacred laws keep us alive by keeping us away from water." Captain Reeves leaned forward. "What if we could show you how to be safe near water? What if the punishers could be kept away?" Before Tazriel could respond, shouts came from the direction of the lake. Rodriguez was pointing at something in the water. A massive cerulean stalker, much larger than the juvenile they had captured, had surfaced just offshore. Its tentacles waved menacingly in the air. The humans grabbed their weapons and equipment, moving with practiced efficiency rather than panic. Tazriel cowered behind a crate, certain they would all be killed. But something unexpected happened. As the humans formed a defensive line, the creature suddenly submerged and retreated to deeper water. The sensors showed it swimming rapidly away from the shore. It recognized the threat, Martins said with amazement. It saw our weapons and chose to avoid conflict. Rodriguez nodded. "Like I said, they know a superior predator when they see one." Tazriel stared at the humans with new understanding. These beings were not just unafraid of divine punishers. They were feared by them. News spread quickly through the Viridian community. A divine punisher had approached the human camp and then retreated. This was unheard of in all their history. The sacred beasts never backed down. They never showed fear. By midday, the Viridian village was split into two factions. The traditionalists, led by Elder Kilithax, insisted that this was simply a test of faith. The reformists, growing in number, whispered that perhaps the humans could teach them to live without fear. Tazriel had not returned to the village. Instead, the young Viridians stayed at the human camp, watching everything with wide, curious eyes. Medical Officer Danielle Foster had taken a special interest in their visitor, showing Tazriel their equipment and explaining how humans use technology to overcome natural dangers. "Your people could learn these things too," Foster told Tazriel through the increasingly accurate translator. "The creatures in your lake are just animals with natural behaviors. They can be understood and managed. But our entire history says they are divine." Tazriel said, "Our laws, our settlements, everything is based on avoiding their wrath." Foster smiled kindly. "Sometimes old beliefs need to be reconsidered when new information comes along. That's how humans have progressed." While they talked, Captain Reeves met with her senior officers. "I believe we're witnessing a pivotal moment for the Viridian species," she said. "Our presence is challenging their fundamental beliefs." "Should we be interfering?" asked Wright. "The Prime Directive does not apply here," Reeves finished. "We've already made contact. The question now is how we proceed in a way that helps rather than harms." Dr. Martinez added his thoughts. From what Tazriel has told us, their civilization has been stunted by fear. They've never expanded beyond their forest settlements because they believe divine punishment awaits any who approach large bodies of water. And those bodies of water cover about 60% of the viable land on this continent, Powell added. They're confined to small areas by their beliefs. As they discussed the situation, a commotion arose outside. A group of Viridians had emerged from the forest, led by Elder Kylofax, but they were not alone. Behind them came a larger group, including members of the High Council. Tazriel rushed to Captain Reeves' side. "This is unprecedented," the young Viridian said urgently. "The High Council never leaves the sacred grove." The Viridian delegation approached cautiously. Elder Kylofax stepped forward with a different communication device, larger and more ornate than before. "We come seeking truth." The translation came through clearly. "You have eaten divine flesh yet live. Divine punishers flee from you. Our oldest law is now in question. Who are you really?" Captain Reeves straightened her uniform and addressed the group. "We are humans from planet Earth. We are explorers and scientists. We seek knowledge and peaceful relations with other intelligent beings like yourselves." The head council member, Servax, stepped forward slowly on his walking stick. "If punishers not divine, what are they?" Dr. Martinez answered. "They are animals, predators that evolved on your world, intelligent in their way, but not gods." This statement caused visible shock among the Viridians. One council member spoke angrily. "Blasphemy! Our entire society built on sacred laws. Without them, what becomes of us?" But another, younger council member stepped forward. "If what they say is true, our people could expand beyond forests. We could build on lakeshores, travel across waters." Tazriel, finding courage, addressed the council directly. "I have learned much from these humans. They do not fear because they understand. They have knowledge we do not. They can teach us." The Viridians broke into heated discussion, with clear divisions forming. The traditionalists grew angry, while others seemed thoughtful, even hopeful. Servax raised his walking stick for silence. He turned his ancient eyes to Captain Reeves. "Show us," he said simply. "Show us how to not fear." The next morning, humans and Viridians gathered at the lakeshore. Captain Reeves had proposed a demonstration, and after much debate, the Viridian High Council had agreed. This would be the day that would change Viridian society forever. "We will show you that the creatures can be managed and studied safely," Reeves explained to the assembled aliens. "And that water need not be feared." Security Officer Rodriguez had set up a perimeter of sonic devices around a section of the beach. "These emit frequencies that the cerulean stalkers find uncomfortable," he explained as Dr. Martinez translated. "They won't come within 50 yards of these devices." The Viridians watched with a mixture of fear and fascination as Engineer Woods activated the system. Small lights blinked on each device, showing they were working. "Now," said Captain Reeves, "we can safely approach the water within this protected zone." To demonstrate, Powell and Carter walked to the water's edge and waded in up to their knees. The watching Viridians gasped. Many covered their eyes, expecting to see the humans dragged under by tentacles at any moment. But nothing happened. The water remained calm. Sensors showed that the stalkers in the lake were keeping their distance from the sonic perimeter. "Your people could build homes near water, fish for food, even travel across lakes and oceans with the right technology," explained Foster. "The creatures that have limited you for so long can be kept at bay." Elder Kylofax shook his head in disbelief. "Our entire history, all our sacred laws, were created to keep your people safe," Captain Reeves said kindly. "They served their purpose. But now you have new knowledge and new possibilities." Tazriel stepped forward, standing beside the humans. "I believe we should learn from them. They can help us grow beyond our forests." The debate among the Viridians continued for hours. Some were eager to embrace new ideas, while others feared abandoning traditions. Servax listened to all sides before finally tapping his walking stick for attention. For generations, we have lived in fear, the ancient Viridian said slowly. Our ancestors created laws to protect us from dangers they could not overcome. But these humans have shown us that knowledge can replace fear. Perhaps this is the next step in our journey. Not everyone agreed, but a decision was made. The Viridians would form an alliance with the humans. They would learn new ways while respecting their history. In the days that followed, humans taught Viridians about the biology of the cerulean stalkers. They showed them how to build sonic barriers and other protective measures. They explained that the creatures avoided humans because humans presented themselves as competitors rather than prey. Some brave Viridians even tried small pieces of cooked stalker meat, breaking their oldest taboo. Those who did found they survived without divine punishment, further challenging ancient beliefs. In return, the Viridians taught humans about their planet's complex ecosystem. They showed them plants with medicinal properties and safe routes through the dense forests. Their knowledge of local weather patterns proved invaluable for the human scientists. 1 month after first landing, Captain Reeves stood with Tazril and Sirvax, watching as Viridians and humans worked together building a small dock at the lake edge. "Your people learned quickly," Reeves commented. "Fear held us back, but no longer," Tazril replied. "Thanks to you, we now see the divine punishers as just creatures to be respected, not worshipped." Sirvax nodded thoughtfully. "And perhaps the most important lesson is that knowledge is stronger than fear." As they watched, a shadow passed beneath the water near the dock. A cerulean stalker swam by, but kept its distance from the sonic barriers. The workers, both human and Viridian, noticed it but continued their tasks without panic. "It seems," Captain Reeves said with a smile, "that there are new apex predators on Viridia now." Tazril looked at the captain with understanding. "Yes, and they are teaching us to be strong too."